Welcome to RCast, the official podcast of the RChain Cooperative. RChain is a complete concurrent blockchain platform designed for maximum efficiency at minimal computational and environmental costs by utilizing proof of stake. I'm Derek Barris, the Director of Content for RChain. We cover a range of topics on this podcast, from the foundations of blockchain in general to the specifics of RChain, including our foundational language, Golang, as well as issues in calculus, governance, security, and the forthcoming businesses and dApp development on our platform. Please check out rchain.coop to learn more about our platform, as well as information on becoming a co-op member.
First of all, thank you, Derek, for hosting this. And thank you to all the board candidates for agreeing to come and chat. Let's kick it off, pass it amongst each other, and I'm going to let you guys self-organize and see how you do that. Here, the first question from the community is, why do you want to help this project?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. This is Steve Henley. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My interest in RChain, I came to RChain about a year and a half ago, or actually, I should say, entered into the blockchain space about a year and a half ago. My main interest is, I'm here in the Tampa Bay area. I'm part of a team bringing transportation, a new form of transit to the Tampa Bay area to help solve the traffic solution. The form of transportation is called aerial personal rapid transit. And with this system, like any transportation system, you need a payment system. And what we're hoping to do is create a digital transit token. And ideally to do that on a blockchain. The transit system needs to be scalable, or it will be scalable, in such the payment system needs to be fast, scalable, and secure. That led me to RChain. So the promise of RChain is that the speed, the scalability, and security, and whatever I can do as a co-op member and also as a potential future board of director to help RChain achieve its goals of becoming the scalable solution for blockchain for industries more broadly, that will help with my endeavors here locally in the Tampa Bay area in bringing the new form of transit to the Tampa Bay area.
That is so cool. I remember you talking about that last week, and it was really exciting kind of hearing your the project that you've been working on, and I think it's totally in line with what I perceive as the why of RChain. And that's kind of like why I got involved. I got involved way back in the scenario days. I think it's important to note that RChain wasn't really built on the idea of a crypto currency that could gain in value and make a bunch of investors a lot of money. It was built on the idea that we're trying to create social coordination technologies for the betterment of humanity, and I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the why. And so that's kind of why I want to be involved. As I said, I've been involved for many years now, and it's thrilling for me to conceive of the idea of being involved so actively as an actual member of the board. So I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Steve Ross-Talbot, I'm here. So why do I want to be involved in this? Well, Pi calculus, that's one reason. Robin Milner was my mentor. Save the planet. I mean, that's two pretty good reasons, I think. And in particular, why RChain? Well, obviously it's got the Pi calculus. It's got the aspiration of having some impact positively on sustainability. But I think really importantly, it's the attempt of having decentralized governance within RChain itself. And for those people that listen to this, I posted something on Discord recently by a guy called Roger Hallam. And Roger's really interesting because he founded Extinction Rebellion. And he talks in a YouTube video about how to achieve decentralization without compromising on speed and velocity. Because often when you do very decentralized organizations, they're very, very slow, like W3C, for instance. And he talks about how they've done it. And they did start with a centralizing core. And I think when you look at the development so far of RChain, the organization, it parallels what Roger says. And I'm very, very, very encouraged by that. For me, the idea that I can use all my maths and computer science stuff in an environment that's nurturing and supportive towards a more participatory approach to decision making in whatever field, for me, that's the only reason to carry on.
Awesome. I did want to just mention that while pi calculus was an influence early on in my work, the RChain is based on the row calculus, not the pi calculus, which is a significant improvement on Robin's already awesome stuff.
I like Roland. I'm Eric Meng. The nickname is Steamworm. I'm from China. And why I got involved in RChain? Because I love Roland. Actually, I think RChain is the most difficult to understand blockchain for me. I have read a lot of articles translated into Chinese, written by Jia and Attic B. That's easy for me to really understand RChain. The most interesting thing is the theory level innovation of RChain. So it's very different from other blockchain. And I think row calculus and Roland is not about blockchain. So that's the most important point to attract me to this project.
Thank you. This is Daniel Salkov. So the question, why do I want to help RChain project? So for starters, I've been involved in crypto for many years, going back to 2013. I have a strong, heavy interest in it. In the last couple of years, I've been much more involved. I've also been following RChain from the beginning, several years ago, before the first token sale and everything. I've always been extremely interested in the project, and I think some of the high-level mathematics is very interesting. And as a potential board member, I would want to act in the best interest of co-op members, stakeholders, and really just want what would make the most successful structure to be successful for the co-op.
Thanks for your answers. The next question is, what are your qualifications in business or in the cryptocurrency industry?
And this is Steve Henley again. So my background in technology is I worked for Verizon for a number of years. Before it was Verizon, it was GTE, and they joined with Bell Atlantic, and I was with a smaller business unit. But essentially, I was in the customer service, the customer-facing role of dealing with the cellular infrastructure for North America, and that I transitioned into the Americas, Central America and South America. It's where I had an opportunity to brush up on my Spanish in order to communicate, but it gave me a sense of the importance of managing customer expectations and meeting, exceeding customer expectations, and the importance of customer support. That is the crux of my technical expertise. And here locally in the Tampa Bay area, we have a community organization called Block Spaces. They originally started as meetups in about 2014. And these were people in the Tampa Bay area who had an interest in cryptocurrency and blockchain. They would meet weekly to have someone to talk to. And over time, the groups became larger and larger, where Block Spaces decided, hey, we need to get a place of our own. So they opened up a facility in Tampa, and that's about a year and a half ago is when I joined the membership. The space is a great opportunity to meet other people who are in the world of cryptocurrency and blockchain recently, and also who have been in the space for a long period of time, to get that rich history of what has been happening. Block Spaces has also been a great exposure for me to the wide field of blockchains that are out there. So we're focused on RChain, but maybe all of us maybe know the top 10 blockchains, but there's others that are out there. So just getting that exposure to what the field is like is very enlightening, and what the strengths and weaknesses and what makes a particular project unique, or what its strengths are. And that has been helpful in helping me to appreciate the strengths of RChain and what that differentiating factors that make us unique.
This is Dan. To answer the question about qualifications, I have a financial background and I'm also have experience being a market analyst, as well as a strong academic background. I believe RChain is going through something right now, and I have quite a bit of experience with large-scale transitions. That's literally my job. So I have to see from beginning to end successful implementation of very large-scale projects. I worked with Bank of New York Mellon through their multi-year transition, and then I also am currently working for T. Rowe Price, and they're going through an internal transition as well. So I believe that this would qualify me.
So Steve Ross-Talbot here. To answer the question, what qualifications, what do I bring to the table? On the one side, on the academic side, I am a professor of distributed computing. And as I said in a previous answer, Robin Milner was my mentor, without whom we wouldn't have row calculus, as Greg mentioned. So from an academic perspective, understanding how to wield process algebra in a distributed system, I understand it enough to be fairly dangerous. On the other side, I've been a serial entrepreneur. So I've worked with VCs and startups, and I've also worked in some big SIs like Cognizant, where I was doing intrapreneurship. One of the things I bring to the table is a really laser beam focus, how to implement and ensure that as Dan talked about the transition, how those transitional steps get broken down into measurable KPIs against which you can seek additional investment to do the next piece of work. What I want to sort of devote my time to, a lot of my time, which I'm doing at the moment, is figuring out what those business models need to be, not with a view to reaming huge profits, but with a view to sustainable growth. So sustainability is a really key aspect of this, and how we map those transitions required to deliver that is something that I've kind of done before with many of the startups that I've worked in and many of the large corporates that I've worked for. From a technology perspective, my first company, SpiritSoft, gave the world JMS. For those of you that hate ESBs, my apologies. We also gave the world ESBs, and we also gave the world the first commercial CP system. So I really understand the nature of protocols and how those work and how one might describe them from an engineering perspective, not just an academic perspective. So I hope that gives people a view as to what I bring to the table.
I have 20 years experience in high tech and telecom, 10 years in telecom and 10 years in the internet industry. And I got involved in the crypto space since 2013. In 2017, I founded Token Jar. It's a DEX built on 0x protocol. Its feature is one-click free listing, focus on long-tail ERC20 tokens. I'm planning to build a staking pool for RChain. It's named WinNode. Currently, I'm developing a Chrome extension light wallet for RChain. And maybe next week, I can show the product. My advantage is I'm from China. I can help RChain to achieve the mass adoption in China.
Hi, Darryl here. It's so exciting to have you on board, Eric. I'm so excited that that there's someone representing the Chinese community that's on the board, and I've never had a chance to tell you that. So thank you. I feel kind of not worthy after hearing all these other amazing qualifications from all of you. I guess I approach things from a bit of a different side angle. I'm not a developer. I'm not involved in finance. I've always loved technology, and I've always believed that that technology would provide a solution for the problem in the music industry. So my background is in music. I've been producing music for about 30 years, and I guess if you look at it from a business angle, I've overseen budgets anywhere from $5,000 to $200,000 to make an album. And that usually involves dealing with all sorts of different personalities and different angles. The quest is always to find something that satisfies the artist's needs as an artist, yet make something that's potentially viable and sellable for the label. And there's a correlation in that ultimately, the way typical record contracts are structured, ultimately it's the artist's money, because it's the artist that has to pay it all back. And I kind of look at it in the same way in the co-op. Ultimately, we're talking about the members. This is a community. This is a member-based organization. And I think the reason why we've chosen a co-op is because it's the best way to organize a decentralized application. I also have a background in working for co-ops. So back in the 90s, I worked for I'm from Canada, by the way, working for Canada's version of REI. It was called Mountain Equipment Co-op. And during that time, I saw the co-op grow quite exponentially. And it was very interesting to observe how they handled that scale. Like they say, most businesses fail at the scaling level. I was able to witness and participate the growth of a co-op and observe kind of some of the solutions that they were able to establish as they went forth. Also, interestingly, as happenstance has it, I became a shop steward for the union, representing the union to the co-op membership management. And that was a really interesting situation, because I found myself many times on the management side, because being a co-op, the employees were pretty happy. So it was just a really great experience being involved with the co-op, and it ignited my passion for all things co-op. So what I would like to involve myself with as a board member is getting more involved in what's to me is very vital, and that is growing a flourishing and active member base who's focused on the why and focusing on governance. We have a long way to go. We're a very young co-op. Most young co-ops start in a fairly centralized way and branch out. And we're about to go through that, I believe. And so that's what I would like to kind of bring to the table.
Well, I have to say, I want all of you on the board. The collective intelligence we have gathered here is pretty awesome. I'm very impressed. But let's move on to the next question. What are some of your past successes? Let me actually throw out two. So, what are some of your past experiences, and do you have experience leading teams? Let me just pick someone, and then that person can pick the next person, and so on, which is kind of the way we run our stand-ups. Darryl, why don't you, since you went last on that one, why don't you take those two questions and then pick someone to take the next two?
So I guess most of my experience leading teams is in the music industry. Basically, a band is a team, and I was in a band. That's how I kind of first got started. I learned a lot about mediation in my experience with the music industry, because there's a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas and attitudes and feelings about what it is they're doing. And when you interweave that with art, you get some pretty passionate viewpoints on things. I'd like to kind of, pride myself in someone who is a good mediator. In the 2000s, I also taught at an audio production school. I was the head instructor and I designed the curriculum. So as a teacher, I learned a lot about learning, because I found that the best way to teach is to listen. And so I learned a lot from that experience. And I just kind of learned how to kind of engage a group of people into something that could be interesting. Okay, I will pass it on to Dan.
So my past experience working with teams, currently I am working on a project team. We work at project management. So our team is broken into the project team, which is my team, and then the reporting team, which is the adjacent team. So I'm leading many projects, and I get to lead people from the reporting team to get some help. For me, that experience is very valuable. A lot of what we do, it just makes sense to delegate certain parts out and work as a team, supporting each other. That's my past experience with working in teams. And then I'll pick Steve Henley.
Yes, we do have two Steves on the call. Thank you, Dan. So an interesting example of a team environment that I've had in my recent past is actually being on my homeowners association. I moved into a new community that had just come up out of the ground shortly after 2000. And it's a community of 40 villa units, and everyone was new to the community. I kind of initiated the community coming together by having a potluck dinner at the clubhouse. And the potluck dinner was kind of a great way for everyone to get to know each other, but it kind of turned into, hey, how are we going to organize this? Our homeowners association, we need to set this up and have representation, because we were a smaller community in a much larger 780 home community. The potluck dinner turned into the first meeting essentially of a homeowners association. We had a management company that we were working with, and they said, your community needs to organize. You need to have elections and have meetings. Somehow by organizing a potluck dinner, I turned into organizing the homeowners association by organizing the elections and the subsequent meetings. And that led to me becoming the president of the homeowners association, and forming these quarterly meetings, bringing everyone together to talk about what the issues were moving into and living in a brand new community. It was a wonderful experience. These people were essentially my neighbors, people that I lived next to, and working with a management company who had an expertise in running homeowners associations. So they had that knowledge that I lacked. And then over the years, I was on either the president or the secretary treasurer for 16 years. And I finally handed the baton on to another group, because others need to get those experiences as well. That was a team experience in the form of a community coming together, which was very, very rewarding. I shall pass the baton on to Dimwern, Eric Meng.
Before I got involved in crypto space, I served as the vice president of KKI. It's a Chinese digital advertising company. It has over 200 employees. In 2017, I founded Token Jar. We have 6 members, and we developed the Chinese version Roland tutorial. Another thing I want to mention is I reorganized the Chinese community for RChain. Now we have over 3,000 members in WeChat groups. I think that's my experience of team.
Okay, I think I'm last. So
Yeah.
Steve Ross-Talbot here. I've built and led, I would say, 3 different types of teams over a career that started in 1980, so that dates me. So I've been in computing for a long time. I've built and led movements, literally movements, political movements in the anti-apartheid days. So I'm used to being able to, and can only really speak passionately about things. I'm either passionate or I'm not, and if I'm not, then get rid of me. So I'm generally quite passionate about the things that I do, and that's why I ended up leading movements in the anti-apartheid years. And I saw South Africa win its freedom as part of that. And maybe what we managed to achieve was a tiny, tiny helping hand to freedom in South Africa. I've also led standards groups. So I chaired all the WS standards in W3C. And that's kind of interesting because that's much less about passion. It's more about an incredible degree of patience in order to get different stakeholders in a team, in a standards group or a standards committee, to agree on something that often some of them don't want to for whatever reasons. And I got quite good at essentially boring them into submission. So when I need to sort of play that long game, I'm pretty well averse at doing it. And out of my tenure in W3C came choreography and session types, which are not dissimilar to row calculus, but a little different. They're dealing with a slightly different problem, for which my colleagues won an ACM Paper of the Decade Award about a year and a half ago. So on the standards front, I'm used to being able to deal with very different sets of stakeholders who often don't want to agree, and I get them to agree. And I've also led and built product teams because I've been an entrepreneur, I've started my own companies. And that includes all the technical staff and a lot of the administrative staff that are required as you start to grow. And the key aspects for me of leading, regardless of what type of team, that I've tended to focus, that I think I bring to the table, is I'm pretty good at mentoring people. I'm pretty good at left field thinking. So I don't always hire the obvious, but I'm pretty good at picking people. I'm very much an enabling sort of person. So I like my teams to be enabled. I don't want to have to dictate to them. I want them to get on with it. And I just move out all the obstacles to ensure that they can do what they do best. And I'm good at knowing my weaknesses in a situation. And so pairing up or hiring people that fill those sorts of weaknesses, which helps you build a team to achieve what objectives you need to. And I'm very open. So I really do believe in retrospectives and really hearing what I call EBIs, so that people, instead of framing a criticism, can say, hey, it would be even better if we did this. So I tend to be sort of very open and hopefully enable people to participate more widely. And those skills, I think, within the RChain co-op are quite important.
Awesome. Wonderful range of experiences here. If I could just go down the line here and just ask a quick yes or no. Steve, Ross-Talbot, do you have experience sitting on the boards of companies apart from RChain?
Yes.
What about you, Steve Henley?
Yes.
Darryl?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Who would like to kick off? Do you understand the RChain technology?
Do I understand the RChain technology? Boy, that is a big question. So if by understanding somebody would mean when there's a problem, call Steve and he'll figure it out quickly. I add the quickly deliberately. Then no. But if it's, do I understand it on a conceptual level? Do I understand the row calculus? Do I understand how to build highly complex distributed systems? And do I understand how to build an organization to support such distributed technology? Then yes. But don't ask me to code.
Can you pick someone to go to follow up?
Derek, have a crack.
I'm not running for the board.
Yeah, you gotta pick a board candidate.
Darryl.
As I said before, I'm not a developer, so there's no hope in heck that I will understand it at any level of someone like Greg or Mike Stay. But what I do understand about RChain technology is that we are providing a truly scalable, correct by construction, concurrent network that will function. I actually met Vitalik back in the day. I guess I haven't mentioned that. I got involved in the Ethereum community when it was kind of first starting out. I'm from Canada, and the burgeoning Ethereum community started off in Toronto. I have a bit of an understanding of the core concept of what got this all going in the first place. I've been around with the whole idea of what ended up becoming Bitcoin since the 90s. A lot of these ideas were floated around back then, and Bitcoin could have been invented in the 90s, as I understand it. We had Phil Zimmerman with PGP, we had Nick Szabo with smart contracts. All of these ideas were floating around in the 90s. And I was part of all sorts of communities that were involved in all that kind of thinking back then, which is why I kind of got involved so early with the scenario. I was doing a Google search for open source social network, and I found Greg and joined the cult. So to my understanding, I think I have a good grasp on what RChain is capable of doing and what we want to do with it. I think I have a fairly good grasp of the solar system and the various stages that we're attempting to shoot for. And I think I have a good understanding of what we need to do as far as community building throughout those different stages. Okay, I'll pass it on to Eric.
I like Roland, that concurrency and composition and reactive smart contract and sharding. In terms of sharding, we use namespace. And the most interesting thing is Ladle, but I really cannot understand Ladle. the spatial behavior type system is too complex for me, but I'm learning it. I don't think I understand RChain, but currently I'm working very hard to learn it. Daniel?
Yes, I do understand RChain tech specifically as it pertains to blockchain and it being a platform for decentralized computation, concurrent processing. I do have a background in mathematics and calculus, so I believe that helps me as well. And I also understand it at an academic level, and I've been reading and following RChain since the beginning.
And I think I'm the only one left, and this is Steve Henley. And about a year ago, around this time, I started on my journey of trying to understand RChain, the RChain project. And my go-to source has been YouTube. And I've watched almost all of the RChain related videos that are out there, from the RCon conference in Berlin to Greg's computational calculi presentation. And there's some RChain community Rolang videos from Jake Gilberg. RChain is, and this is one of the things I like so much about it, there's so much there broadly and deeply. After a year, I still feel I've got a long ways to go. But that's part of the fun and the exploration. And one of the components that I really like is the Monday morning Casper stand-ups. So it's usually a small crowd, Greg, Kent, myself, and a few members from the collab. And Greg has an opportunity to talk about what's the latest is in the Casper protocol. I think that is probably one of the most important calls for anyone in the co-op community to sit in on, because Casper and the consensus model that we bring for the proof of stake, that's our differentiating factor from this world of proof of work. And once we get that piece, and as I understand it, all the other components to the RChain is they've been built, or kind of the technology had been proven years ago, and we're repurposing it. But the Casper consensus protocol, that's the new piece. And once we get that down and get proof of stake working, that's the big game changer. So just having that insight into kind of be listening in and participating in those discussions is exciting. That's been kind of my journey. And there's still much more. I could probably talk, for a half hour of what the collab and what they're doing. But those are some of the things that I've been doing to get up to speed on RChain.
Awesome. Thanks to everyone for those answers. Let me give another pair of questions, since we've got about 15 minutes left in the hour. First one is, how should funding for Venus be handled? And sort of right on the heels of that, what are the marketing plans once mainnet is launched? What do you think are good marketing plans, I guess would be the question. So let's begin with Eric, and then Eric, you pick someone, and so on and so forth.
The mainnet is the new start, and that's the beginning of our effort to rebuild the confidence. But currently, the market is bear market, is still bear market, and it's hard for us to raise capital through selling rock or rev. We need to raise the capital for Venus development. So we should try to contact more institutional VC and to let them know the roadmap of RChain. I think the market will turn up in the next couple of months. So that's a chance for us to raise enough fund. Next is Steve Ross.
How should funding for Venus be handled, and what should be good marketing plans? These actually are related, so you can't actually cut them into two. It might be, for example, that certain solution spaces will need all the capabilities of Venus in order to be successful, in order to deliver sustainable revenue into the co-op that allows the co-op to sustainably grow, and allows the network to grow beyond the cooperative itself. So it really depends upon what those solution spaces need and whether they need the features that will be in Venus. So, and a good marketing plan is one that implements a business strategy or a business roadmap in keeping with the technology offering that you have and the differentiators you have. I don't have a clear view of how Venus should be handled, other than by whatever the same mechanism would be for Mercury into mainnet, potentially. There may be some other mechanisms, and actually I'm actively investigating these at the moment and hope to have some answers or some direction for the AGM. So it's one of the things that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And that includes very much or focus on a business strategy or business roadmap, one in which we potentially could go to parties that we are interested in having in the co-op, and that those parties would be able to assist in the funding of Mercury to mainnet and towards Venus, and all of the marketing dollars that need to be put in place, and all of the structure, organizational structure that needs to be put in place to actually deliver on a marketing plan. That business strategy and business roadmap are actually the most important things, because within the scope of that, there will be a view on Venus from a financial perspective against a return perspective, and a view on Mercury to mainnet, and so on. So I'm actively involved in that stuff, but I don't have concrete answers to either of them. My gut feel is that Venus is that mainnet's imperative, Mercury to mainnet's imperative, and Venus probably will take care of itself when that pops out. That's my gut feel, but we have to see what happens over the next few weeks and months before we can be sure of that. And hopefully at the AGM, we can have discussions about business strategy and roadmaps. And so I pass to Mr. Henley.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I agree with Steve Ross-Talbot in the sense it's not quite clear exactly what the pathway or avenues to successful funding for Venus will be. I think as we get to mainnet and get further beyond, hopefully that it'll become more apparent whether it's going to be capital partners, family offices, or perhaps if there's a resurge in the cryptocurrency market, or perhaps if we, with the showcase of mainnet, there's an increase of awareness of the RChain project, that it could be more a broad community investment. It's not quite clear yet of what the path is, but I think certainly we need to gather marketing collateral and materials that we need to communicate, improve our messaging or communication of what the project is. And that's something that I'm involved in as well. And as far as the marketing, there's a broad range of industries that are out there that would be good candidates for blockchain, and others perhaps not so good. Knowing where to start is going to be an important, helps to set the tone and tenor of what direction. We've talked about our song in the music industry and energy and so forth, but perhaps we need to develop a type of template or grid of scoring mechanism where we can take a particular industry and run it through a process of determining, based on the trustlessness and all the various components of what the strengths of blockchain are, to kind of do a scoring mechanism of what industries may rise above others. It may be, for instance, like telecom and the call clearing industry may be a good candidate. Once we have identified particular industries which are top candidates, pursue those. That's one approach to marketing that may have certain advantages. Darryl, do you still need to go?
Yeah, I need to go. Thanks, Steve. So yes, I kind of agree with Stephen Ross-Talbot in that it's kind of interconnected, marketing and how we get funds for Venus. So I will start with the kind of marketing aspect of things. And first of all, I think to understand Venus, we kind of need to understand Mercury and Earth. So right now, we're hopefully pretty close to getting mainnet. And once we do, in theory, some things will change. One thing will be that hopefully the world will discover that we've created a minimum viable product, at least demonstrating all the work we've been doing all this time. And in theory, that should generate some interest. But Eric brings up a very important point. It's the elephant in the room that a lot of us are afraid to talk about. And that is that we've survived a crypto winter. And now we're in the crypto doldrums. It's a very difficult market to get any kind of investment interest in. So we have to really show that we're doing something special and unique. And I think that we learned something really important in the last month. And that is that there's a community out here that really wants to jump in and help out. And that's really exciting. And I think we should really nurture that. We don't have a lot of money right now to put in a big, huge marketing campaign, but there's a lot we can do right now in the grassroots. And so I'd like to really kind of explore that. Just get out there and start to reach out to people who have like minds, who are more focused on things that RChain was focused on at its inception. So I think that's a lot we can do right now. As far as Venus goes, once Venus arrives, in theory, we'll be showing at least a minimum viable product of a functioning, concurrent, scalable network. We'll be at the point where we can get thousands of nodes happening. And Rolang's feature set will be more developed. So, in theory, that alone, build and they will come, will generate some interest, but we can't just allow that as our main way. So one thing that I've thought about for a while now is taking a page from the playbook of the Mozilla Foundation. We are a nonprofit co-op.
I need to correct you there, Darryl. The cooperative is for profit.
Oh, okay. As far as I understand it, it's registered as a nonprofit, but
no, it's a for-profit company. We cribbed almost every part of the structure from REI, which is for-profit.
Okay. Anyways, the Mozilla playbook is based around a nonprofit foundation that has a for-profit corporation that's a wholly owned subsidiary of it. And I think that this could be another vehicle that would perhaps give us another funding angle. If we were to focus on starting a for-profit that is focused on building bridge solutions, like what RCat is doing, we could provide potentially another investment vehicle outside of those who want to directly invest in rock. So I think that's something else that we could entertain and pursue, put it out to the member base and see what they have to say about it. So those are kind of some thoughts that I have about how we can get there. But, for me right now, the here and now, I'm not thinking so much about Venus, but the right here now, I think, is focusing on grassroots. That's what's kind of kept us going in the last month, and I think it could keep us going into the future.
I just wanted to say that I think the funding Venus and marketing plans are very intertwined and one and the same. I think at the organizational level, it makes sense to hire experienced salespeople to pitch to investors. I think we're also really want to market to investors as well. I would even want to see some sort of fundraising meeting that might work as well. And I think that we should also include market research just to make the project more attractive to investors. And that's how I would handle funding Venus and marketing plans going forward.
I just have to ask, how would you pay for that?
Yeah, so that's why I was saying that I think that we should start fundraisers so that we can potentially fund things specific for that through events where we can meet and talk face-to-face with investors.
Got it. Understood. Awesome. All right. Thank you, gentle people. Let me move on here. We've got, sorry. We've only got about 2 minutes left. So we didn't quite get through all of our questions. If you want, you can see the list of questions on Discord and answer the remaining questions there. I just want to close out with an observation that occurred to me when I saw the first U.S. Democratic candidate debates, which was, my gosh, here's a group of intelligent, articulate people. Why do we have to winnow it down to one? Why couldn't they just all work together as a team? And in startup situations, or situations like we have with the global crisis around climate change, it's pretty much all hands on deck, and anybody can wear a particular hat at any one given time. I would have really liked if all the Democratic candidates got together and said, you know what, we're a team. We're running as a team, not individually. I really feel like, there's an interesting opportunity here with the RChain board. I've been very impressed by everyone's presentation of themselves, and I'd love to have the board comprised of the giant brain that is all of you.